1915 all the way up to 1940. The last hour is the sunset. It's historically called the golden hour. That's when a lot of the inspiration came about. That's why a lot of artists from all over the nation started to migrate to this area of the southeast after coming home from World War I, quite honestly. And that's why you'll find so many galleries in such a high, pronounced art kind of society. Straight up in front of us here, art is not just the pieces you find in the galleries, but the architecture, quite honestly. Beautiful church right here is going to be the oldest congregation in the city. Dating all the way back to 1681. It's also the oldest congregation in South Virginia in the country. This is St. Philip's right here. St. Philip's is the original Church of England, or the original Anglican church in the city. Charleston was originally called Charlestown back in 1670 when it was founded. It was named in honor of King Charles II. He would have been the King of England in the latter half of the 17th century. 1681, congregations established. 1838, church is built, constructed physically, brick and mortar. If you keep your eyes on the church steeple as you go around the corner here, you'll notice it's going to start to lean to the left-hand side about 4 or 5 degrees. And that's not an optical illusion with the scaffolding. The church physically sank about 8 inches on the east side on August 31st of 1886. There was a cataclysmic earthquake that hit this area of the country, and the earthquake measured in at a 7.4 out of an 8.9 on the Richter scale. The written record said that the streets rolled like the waves of the sea for 90 seconds. Every property in the city of Charleston was damaged in some way, shape, or form. They felt the tremors as far south as Savannah and Cuba, and as far north as Portland in the state of Maine, up in the northeast. It was a huge earthquake, and that's one of the few examples of architecture that was built to last. It survived, but it didn't survive unscathed. That's the big reason for what happened to damage to this very day. You probably noticed it, like the scaffolding, like the folks who like the color church, so like it would work for people right now. They're trying to replace the light project. They're trying to raise $20.5 million as far as the expensive restoration and work with that church people to get it in a really good way before they fully pass it on to the next generation of the congregation. They're currently at about 19.5 out of the $20.5 million. They anticipate meeting that goal fully by the end of the fall, if not the early winter of this coming year. And that's when they're going to pull the trigger on phase 2 and phase 3 of the architectural work that might have to lift the church up on one side versus the other. They just finished phase 1, first part of the project. They redid the stucco work on the brick of the church steeple. They also just re-gilded the clock face with 24 karat gold. Regular, like, you on a house. Questions? Sorry, questions? If you have any questions, make sure to ask them, raise your hand, yell the questions out. There's no script I have to stick to, quite honestly. So whether it's more history, whether that's revolution, or architecture like that church, or if you want to talk about horses for 60 minutes, I can talk about hasten like a herd and a pastor. But folks don't ask questions, though. I start making bad jokes sometimes. And I don't stop making bad jokes until somebody asks us a question, which I don't want that. I like y'all in my direction. Like, I'll talk a lot, Jason won't talk a lot, he's pretty hoarse from our last tour. I know, it's not even like you're my worst material right there. Save yourself for good to say. Okay, I got a question for y'all. Does anybody want to take a wild guess as to why they call this meeting street? What do they used to do here? They used to meet here. What do they meet for? Yes, sir. What do they used to meet? Trading. Meeting? That's a good guess. Some people call it church. Wouldn't call it church unless it was the Anglican faith before, thank God, saved King Charles II, right? Okay. The English said that you could practice whatever faith you wanted in the holy city as they marketed it to all kinds of folks back in England, back in Europe, that were fleeing religious persecution. They basically couldn't practice their faith freely across the Atlantic Ocean. So the English said was, you can't practice this over here. The other place for you on the other side of the water. It's called the holy city, Charlestown. You can practice whatever faith you want. You can have a church if you like. That sounded really good. A lot of folks. Unfortunately, when something sounds like it's too good to be true, it usually is, yeah, right? So what they really meant was the Church of England. What they also didn't say, what they really meant was no Catholicism. If you were a practicing Catholic, you were not allowed in the colony until the end the Revolutionary War in 1783.
Wow.
Nothing to do with the beliefs of that faith in the Vatican City. It has everything to do with the English not getting along very well with the Spanish in the New World. Got the walled city of St. Augustine, only about 4 hours away today, south by down in Florida. They figured if you're a practicing Catholic, you're obviously a spy. Every other faith would come at this spot right here to a public meeting house originally. Meeting houses for public buildings. You could worship that faith freely. That was true. They could not call it a church unless it was an Anglican church. You have to share the building with every other congregation in the city. Fast forward to 2025, the Holy City currently hosts over 180 active congregations on a peninsula that's only almost about 150,000 full-time primary residents. So these incredible concentration of congregations, and that's because there's so many church people directed here on Peninsula Charleston. Every congregation was allowed after the end. Like Catholic congregations, there's mosques, synagogues, and if you're walking by, like later on after this tour, you notice the doors to a holy structure open, so you're like, oh, we're not a member of that congregation, oh, I'm not a follower of that faith. It's an open invitation to all. You don't have to be a member of said congregation to go inside. You can be a looky-loo, you can go on like a free tour, like go check out the architecture, the city map. I'll show you see lots of photos. Background in Charleston is like so pretty, quite honestly. During that golden hour, especially a couple hours from now, everybody's going to go time of year to come visit. Their summer clothes and got like the work of it sold out. It's like that every year. But it's starting to kind of turn the corner into like almost a time of year. It's really a pleasure to be around. Gorgeous example of Greek revival style architecture right here. Big old Ionic columns that look like scrolls at the top. This right here is the Hibernian Society. It is an Irish benevolent society that was established all the way back in 1703 by James Adler. It is still an active Irish benevolent society to this very day. Originally, if you were an immigrant from Ireland to Charlestown and you didn't know anyone, you didn't have any money you're bringing with you, they would set you up with a sum of money or a plot of land as soon as you cross the line or still open today. Not sure that they still give away the large sum of money or the plot of land, but it's like definitely still worth out. The worst they can say is no. I feel like a celebrity professional. I always say like, no. I feel like a rock star every day. Speaking of rock stars, the true rock stars in real life, you can probably hear them coming down the street. It's the siren, fire truck all the way down there. So we're going to kind of hold tight right here for a see where this fire engine's going. If he gets excited, don't jump off the carriage. I've never seen that turn out. Hear how they just turned off the sirens for us too? Because they're not trying to spook me. They're going to keep the sirens moving right. They have to do a little bit of signaling when they get to just for safety's sake, but we really appreciate them turning off like the really loud sirens for the work. Also, shout out to the police department and the EMS, the emergency medical services in the city, for the super duper respectful. Okay, intersection right here. They call it the Four Corners of Walls in the city of Charleston. This is the most highly photographed intersection in the state of South Carolina. Big reason for that is because every branch of law in the country is represented but at one intersection. It's kind of an odd thing, doesn't really happen in every city in the United States. We have the federal courthouse, that imposing looking stone structure right there, and the post office representing law. This building right here is the old State Circuit Municipal Courthouse representing the state law. Left-hand side, everybody wait, because where Mayor Constable works Monday through Friday. That's City Hall on the left-hand side. And beautiful St. Michael's right here. One of the oldest clock towers on the continent of North America. Oldest physical church in the city, built in 1762 as Georgian Palladian style architecture. St. Michael's represents gospel. So we have federal, state, city, and God's law, all at one intersection. And the locals say that since the traffic has become such an issue, and since the parking has become such a nightmare, they say that if you need to get your errands done, as all these public Park the car, run around the intersection, get all those errands done in a couple hours. You can send your mail, go to jail, pay your bail, say your hail. You can, wouldn't even have to move your car, quite honestly. You could pay like 1 meter. Also, if you decide to park at a meter, the meters are free after 6 p.m. So save your quarters for laundry. And if you're on a Sunday, they're free the entire day on a Sunday. If you have a handicap pass, and the rear view mirror thing, the meters are free at all times for anyone that has closed pass. It does not go to the garage. If you forget to pay the meter, the ticket, yikes, right? $14 for the entire day. Is that better or worse than paying a parking garage the entire day? We're all adults and we'll let you all make your own decisions. So I'm just going to let that hang in the air for a second. Okay? Keep that in the back of your mind. We're pull over with the monster truck from Lightning. Want to stand in traffic behind cars, sometimes he turns into a monster truck just right over the passenger. Maybe not. Ace can't get any more points on his license. We're not looking to have a day like that. Now we can't get grounded for the weekend, right? Okay, you got leaf blowers coming up there, right? Careful around that. Alignment. Alright. Oh, the gates are open. Everybody's like, pretty dark right. A lot of these driveways too behind the gates like long and skinny. They seem to go to nowhere. Like, what's back there? Houses behind houses is the norm here in Charleston. You'll be able to see the structures laid through the street here. And the reason for that is because they're historically called dependencies. Things like kitchen houses, things like carriage houses, arches to the windows, arches to the doorway. Imagine 6 of 8 feet little horsey noses poking out of those windows right now. No staples leaking on the right hand side. Staples that supported this residence here. This is what's known as the Branford Orry House. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. Branford Orry was the first official president of the South Carolina Railroad. It was the first public railroad in the country. This right here is the original carriage stone or carriage block, too. 1 step, 2 step, 3 steps of one of the carriage pulling up in front of your house.
Yes. Who owns the house that had the security detail outside back there?
Which one? Right there?
Yeah.
Might have been looks like maybe the Huguenot Society, what it originally was, the Two-Bit Society. Maybe they're doing some kind of special event. Sometimes we will have notable figures come to the city that get security details and whatnot. One of my colleagues, his name is Derek Ward. He just got signed off being a tour guide. Got his license for the tourism and livability office. His first day as a tour guide, he had to be briefed by a U.S. Marshal about the special route they were going to take and how they were going to have a motorcade, 2 vehicles of Secret Service in front and behind. They had Secret Service along the entire route. He had to give a tour to 2 of the Supreme Court justices and every state appellate judge in South Carolina. Can you imagine your first day as a tour guide and you're trying to make bad jokes? He never let me, he didn't tell me how it went. How did it go? Did they crack a smile? And beautiful house right here on the right. This is my pickup of the 5 active house museums you'll find in the city. If you pay admission, you can go on a walking tour of the garden, but also inside afterwards. Room by room of what's known as the Nathaniel Russell House. Home itself was constructed in 1808. And in 1808, house would cost about $350 US to build. That was the average. This home was built for $80,000 in 1808. The walking tour is exceptional. Just kind of shows you the grandiose luxury that a lot of these folks would have been living in back in the antebellum period prior to the Civil War. There's 24 karat gold in the molding of the parlor with a 14-foot windows at the second level there. There's a 3-story spiral mahogany staircase that floats free flying through the center of the home. It has no nails in it. It's X-rated. It has no metal of any kind that holds it together. They carved a window into the back of one of the steps that shows soft interlocking wooden pegs and joints of Amazon mahogany, but they do not know how it's engineered even today in 2025. staircase, they think that it works in a cantilever fashion. So if you take like one step from the staircase, they think the step above you and below you lock in to support your weight, shift it up to the third floor, and it follows you up step by step to the third floor. There are two identical staircases in the United States. One in that house museum. The other one is on the other side of the nation in a church in Santa Fe, New Mexico called the Rebel. And they have no idea who created either of those modern marvels of engineering. I was talking about art before. You see that painting on the side? That's in the Daniel Russell house right there.
Yes.
Great. Jeremy never says hi. I'm like breaking his confidence.
You did win.
It's really cool. You see a lot of people like wheel painting and things like that. I mean, it's a good place to be. It's really quiet this time of year, too, because a lot of folks have not come back to their third or fourth home quite yet. Because the weather, it might still get a little bit warm in September, right? You're going to wait until October to have, like, fall harvest parties for all your, like, bougie friends coming to visit, right? So it gets really quiet for certain periods throughout the year. Typically the summer all the way up until about mid, if not late September. And then in the winter, January and February, it turns into like a ghost town. For a lot of these cars right here are artisans and landscapers that are working on these properties, getting them up to snuff once again before we go into the modern specifications in Charleston. It's like a Dodge. Vanilla, strawberry chocolate, Neapolitan ice cream house. Great question. How much are these homes? The short answer is a lot. It's not the initial investment either. It's the money, capital, and reinvestment that's going to have to be poured into the property to keep it functioning at bare minimum. In today's day and age, north side of Broad Street and the other side of the four corners of the law, average real estate is $1 to $3 million. South side of Broad Street, same size house and size lot, closer to the waterfront, is going to be about $5 to $11 million in today's day and age. That being said, are you ready to see my house? There you go. On the left-hand side right here, this is Italianate-style architecture. Really beautiful property. Also notice we have the doors open. Second set of beautiful crystal doors. Williams Mansion was constructed in 1878 as the largest single-family private residence in the city. The house itself is 24,000 square feet and 35 bedrooms. Sometimes I joke if folks are not away from me, and it's 1.5 bathrooms. And people are like, really? I'm like, no, it's actually 30 restrooms inside the place. Like the antiques out front, the ones that are covered up right there, those are two Davids carved in the marble. Then we have a Madonna on the right. We have low relief from Athens, Greece on the left-hand side.
The ceilings
right up front. There's an incredible antiquities collection that is world-renowned
when you
behind the
look at the
walls
house.
of the Williams Mansion as we know it today. Really beautiful property. Beautiful garden. Anybody else questions so far? Any questions? Is anybody looking for that portrait of something? Have you found one right now? You got good taste, right? Also, you notice the fractions on addresses, sometimes 11.5 alludes to the Carriage house in the rear of the property, a dependency that's been sold off over the passage of time. They couldn't renumber the entire side of the street. One estate becomes 4 or 5 single-family residences. So instead of renumbering every house, they squeeze the addresses between the currently existing ones. That halves are very common, quarters are pretty common, 8th and 6th addresses are rarities, but you'll find them down long, skinny side alleys and side streets, quite honestly. It's like 1 and 1/2. Great example of Queen Anne Victoria on the left-hand side. Martha, Carriage, and Williams Manor on our left. Beautiful single-family private residence at the turn of the 20th century. For a while, it was a bed and breakfast. Actually, for about 40 years back in the 20th century. It's now the downtown clubhouse of the Key Island Golf Club. Yes, ma'am.
You know what? Are we going to pass by the house where how could I say it? The man built the house for her and she passed away. They were a bride and a groom, and the parents, I believe, bought the property for the kids as like a dowry.
It's a good question. I'm not sure the house you're alluding to, quite honestly.
Okay.
I'll ask some of our other tour guides.
And I don't remember the name of the house.
This property itself this is the daughter of Mr. Williams from up the street.
Oh.
On the day of the wedding, Martha's parents offered to send them on
Might be the house.
honeymoon.
Yes.
Upstage the parents. And this honeymoon was part of, people were taking these things called grand tours
Yes.
for a while, which were basically like years of going over to Europe, city to city, like a month or two at a time, and picking things out to ship back to wherever you were from. When you got back, you'd take people room by room. Oh, this reminds us of we were here, we were in Vienna, we were like, and that's what they did. They sent them on a 2-year grand tour of Europe to furnish the house, quite honestly. While they were in Paris, they were in France for a period of this honeymoon, they saw something called the Arc de Triomphe. They thought, wow, that'd look incredible back in Charleston. They wrote to Mommy and Daddy and they said, can you buy it for us? Can anyone in the world buy the Arc de Triomphe from the French? No, it's their national monument. So what they did, it's hard to see from this angle, the turret on the left-hand side right here, if you look up on the roof, you see that big piece of stone up there? That's a replica of the Arc de Triomphe the parents had commissioned.
Oh,
There was
yeah.
nowhere to put it in the garden when they got back with all of those antiques and all that furniture.
Oh.
So what they did was they put it up on the top of the roof for that young couple. So it'd always be a piece of Paris here in Charleston. for them. I'm not sure if that's like the story you're thinking of,
It's
maybe, but
similar.
Miss Martha, she also ended up, when her father passed away, George Walter Williams Sr. of my house now, she actually had this gazebo donated to the city. It ended up going in the center of White Point Gardens, or Oyster Point right here. That gazebo is now the #1 public place to be married in the city of Charleston today. And if you go inside, if you look at the top of the rotunda, it says George Walter Williams Sr.'s name. It was in honor of him that he did pass on, quite honestly. Really pretty park too. Public park, southernmost tip of the peninsula. Cooper River behind us, Ashley River out to the left-hand side. Beautiful American live oak trees right here too. Each one of these Quercus virginiana is easily over about 100, 150 years of age. They're all planted towards the end of the Civil War, quite honestly, after all the bombardment coming from the Union blockade following the fall of Fort Sumter. Which you can actually still go tour. On a beautiful day like today, highly recommend. Take the ferry service out. They go multiple times a day. You can tour where the first battle of the Civil War was. You also get the harbor tour, basically. You get a boat ride out and a boat ride back. It's a good deal if I've ever heard of it. You get like 2 tours right. If you need a place to spend the night after that tour, you just tucker it out for sure. You need like a nice B&B. This right here, 20 South Battery, the Stephen Lathers house. This second Empire Victorian style architecture. This is a bed and breakfast. After you can stay the night inside that house and see if you like living in a house that large before you sign the mortgage and put the money down. And buy one for yourself outright. It's a huge investment to own a Victorian or let's say an antebellum style mansion. As you can tell, it really does take an arm and a leg to keep these properties functioning, but if you want to keep them looking brand spanking new, it's a lot of money in investment of capital and time and energy to get that work done. Then you're also going to have to get the approval for it. And I don't mean approval from the city, I mean the approval of your neighbors. Does anybody have an HOA? Imagine an HOA is an H-E-L-L. That is what some of the locals nickname the Board of Architectural Review. The Board of Architectural Review does not give you a yay or a nay on what you can do to get the exterior of your house, but they will take your request to repaint your home the same color, repaint your shutters the same color, they see a Redstone paint, to a bi-weekly public hearing. At that public meeting, the general public can show up and take a vote. As long as they have a valid driver's license to the state of South Carolina and the address is within Charleston County's limits, they get to say yay or nay on whether or not you get to repaint those shutters the exact same color. Anybody see an issue with that?
Wow.
Yeah, right. Yeah, wow is right. Who has those neighbors? Y'all are too nice. Everybody has those neighbors, right? And let's say those neighbors show up, vote doesn't pass for some odd reason, can't do the work. Paint's peeling off the property, can't do the work. if your house is starting to look like a haunted mansion, that's all right. It's the hand of God, as is seen in the eyes of the law. It's considered preservation. It's the salt water from the Atlantic Ocean. It's the hurricanes. It's the storms that are destroying a property slowly but surely. They need a lot of upkeep. And that's your legal right, considered maintenance by neglect. The city cannot force you paint your property to looking brand spanking new, and your neighbors can fuss all they want, but they can't bring any kind of litigation suit because the judge will say, stare decisis. I have to stand on all prior decisions of this court in this appellate court in the state. That is maintenance by neglect. It is what it is. You have to get the approval to have the work done. Great example of Art Deco style architecture. This is kind of a rare thing for a private residence. You see this commonly on the businesses on like the northern part of King Street, quite honestly. It's pretty rare for a single family home like that. It's like roaring 20s, great Gatsby style architecture. Really nice home car with questions so far. See a lot of beautiful ironwork throughout the city too. This right here, you notice it's very intricate. The ironwork, what's known as cast ironwork. If anybody has like a cast iron pan back home, yeah, like seasoning, normally scrub with salt, can't soap on it, kind of thing. Very, very temperamental. Cast iron is molding the iron. You're pouring the molten iron into the cast iron. Charged to use metric shapes and details. Right, you see the other side of the coin of the city too, handmade wrought ironwork for every angle, every curve and design with one hammer blow, wrought by hand by a blacksmith. It's really, really pretty. You see like those pieces of art, functioning pieces of art, like all throughout the city too. So keep your eyes out and look at everything throughout the city. Speaking of beautiful things, this right here, this gorgeous house is the Gibbs Mansion. The Gibbs Mansion is Georgian-style architecture. The layout of the house is a double home, which means that it's 2 rooms wide, 2 rooms deep, 2 floors on top of this above-ground basement originally. This is like an 8-room symmetrical Georgian-era house. Beautiful property considering this house built in 1772. This is the back side of the house.
It's
wow.
the back.
That's the rear door back there.
Oh,
The reason
my.
this is the back door here is because this is the waterfront property originally. Everything to the south of us here, they call it South Battery, or the Battery Wall, the seawall that originally would have been right below our feet. Everything to the south is filled in marsh. Over time, it's all reclamated over the past few years, especially by the English. They conducted a very large landfill project in the city, filling in creek beds and marshland over the passage of time. This family on the right used to make their money as merchants on the water, and they had a dock and a wharf coming off the back of that above-ground basement, going directly into the Ashley River, and they would dock a fleet of ships at the ready behind the house. They could board a ship, go out Ashley River to the Atlantic Ocean in our harbor, catch the trade winds off to London they were in 5-6 weeks. Nice life, right?
Yeah, are you really thinking about a good gardening every time?
Yes, ma'am. It's the same family that donates the money and the funds in the early 20th century to open the Gibbs Museum of Art back on Meeting Street. If you get it, chance. That is my pick as far as art museums in the Southeast. The bottom floor, there's a couple exhibits. There's a beautiful garden out back, like where they have the gift shops and things like that. Second floor is where you'll find the permanent collection. A little bit of everything as far as like fancy furniture dating the colonial period. They have a permanent collection, part of it. A lot of those pieces dating to that Charleston Renaissance. A lot of artists went all over the world to learn their trade, learn their craft, and they tried to replicate it. So you see everything as far as like watercolors, more modern, even things like woodblock prints too, which is really, really cool. But on the 3rd level, they're doing a temporary exhibit. They're going to run it through October 5th, I believe is the last day, called Picturing Freedom. It's all about Harriet Tubman, and not just her work with the Underground Railroad, but her work as far as espionage with the Union Army. They go very heavily into the Combahee River raid, which she led with the Union garrison, where it happened on the Combahee River down towards Savannah. They ended up freeing over 850 enslaved people in that raid. It was a very, very successful raid. I'd also take a look at her personal life as like a family woman too. So it's a really cool exhibit. Highly recommend. That's like the temporary exhibit that's up on the 3rd floor. In the summer, I like to mention this. They also have the best central air conditioning in the city. It's really good. Gotta keep all that priceless like artwork in like good condition. They also have an area of the third floor where you can like look through big glass windows at how they go about restoring pieces of art that have been possibly neglected over the past few years. Like candle smoke is like painted like paintings and like pieces of mosaics and churches are like candle burning. It's really cool. Great question. See, if you ask me a question, get me off on a tangent, never stop talking. Man, if they paid me by the word, my gosh, like, I don't even know. Ace and I would be like down in the Caribbean right now, like pina coladas, like coming grim. Yeah. This house on the right is kind of a funny house. Does anybody know what a Sears is?
Department store.
Sears, like the department store.
Yeah.
Sears and Roebuck prior to that, right? The Sears building in Chicago is the Sears Roebuck building, right? Sears Roebuck catalog.
Yes.
Almost anything and everything you could want in the world
Yes.
be in that
House
catalog, like a
Yes.
house.
House kit.
Yeah, this is a kit house right here from the 1930s.
That's it.
on
They
the
were
right-hand
kit
side.
houses.
This
That's
is
right.
one of over 330 floor plans you could choose from. You would send them a check, and then that house would show up on a ship in the harbor or in a rail car.
That's
All you'd have to do is put together like a big old Lego set, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I like to tell younger folks, I'm like, it's kind of like the Amazon before the day and age of the internet. They're like, age of the internet. I'm like, yeah, there used to be these heavy things called catalogs that came in your house. It's like made out of paper. And then, like you said, you would write them a check. Like it's a piece of paper. It acted as like an IOU. You'd send it in the mail, and they're like, man, it's a whole thing. It's like a gator right there. My God.
I know, with the sunglasses.
I know. He's got sunglasses on. Patriot.
Party gator.
Say the very least. This is the only other example you find of a Sears Roebuck house in the city.
Okay. Sears Roebuck. We got our camper trailer delivered to Montana
Yeah.
by the track, and my husband had to put it up together at the track itself.
And it was a camper trailer, you
Yes,
said?
a camper trailer.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, you were talking like 1965, 1966.
Yeah, oh my God. Do you also have it? The
No,
camper trailer.
no, no.
That'd be kind of cool. You can buy anything and everything.
That's right.
You can buy a spider monkey from Sears Roebuck from the catalog, and if you get a live spider monkey delivered to your property. Now you can wire Jeff Bezos $25,000 worth of your hard-earned money, and Amazon will deliver a kit house to your front door or to the property. Which is pretty cool. Okay. Y'all see this here on the left-hand side? This little green space. It's like a little parcel here. Anybody know what tour guides call that? Retirement. Yeah, that right there. That little property is one of the few examples of a vacant lot south of Ross that has still been left. I went to the dentist a couple months ago, and it's like waiting on the dentist, talking to the hygienist. Her name's Kelly. Kelly's great. She always like takes good care of me. And she's like, "Oh, you're a tour guide, right?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, the dentist. He has some questions for you." I was like, "I'm not in trouble with the dentist." He asked me, he's like, "Do you do the carriage tours?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You know the zone 2? You go down that street over on the west side of the peninsula." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You know that vacant lot?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, no, I know that vacant lot." I was like, "How do you know?" He's like, "Well, the owners of that vacant lot, my aunt and my uncle, we've been trying to get them to sell us that lot for the past like couple of decades, quite honestly. We want to put like a greenhouse on that vacant lot."
No.
And I was like, "Cool. Like when you get the vacant lot and you build the house, you're gonna find me over for sweet tea, right?" He didn't have any answer for me.
Dream house.
I'm like, yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, but
It's
they'd
just
have
like,
to follow
apparently
the guy.
that lot is in like his family's like.
Oh, wow.
Funny thing, you like learning stuff every day. Okay, remember I talked about the fraction addresses we saw the carriage house room? 130 and a half right there. 130 is the main house originally. 130 and a half. Notice the chimney. Notice how sizable it is. It's a little bit on the smaller end. And notice the physical fire break space between the properties indicates that 130 and a half was originally a kitchen house. 1740, there was a great fire that was so intense it burned down a third of the city. during that time period. So after that Great Fire, the city of Charleston made it illegal to build your house out of wood for the next 40 years, but they also mandated that thereon after you had to have a physical fire break between a building where a kitchen was, where you're just having a fire burn 24 hours a day, and then the main house. They didn't want to spread from one property to the other. Always a northeasterly breeze on the peninsula. The fire's going to continue to spread and burn down the rest of the city, quite honestly. Great fires were a big issue historically in Charleston. The Great Fire technically burns down over 100 structures. There was a Great Fire in 1861 that burned down 1,100 buildings. It's crazy. That's even more than a certain to be honest. There's a lot of beautiful houses on this street too. I like these long, skinny properties on long, skinny lots. The floor plan or the layout here is called a Charleston single house. Like the Charles Graves house right here, built in 1795, is a single room wide, long and skinny for one reason, circulation. If you were to open up the windows on each end of that home, you get the natural northeasterly breeze rolling from one end to the other. Acts with natural air conditioning for the day and age of units. It's hot. It's humid down here in the summer, right? You want to stay nice and cool as you can. Well, also notice that these houses have these funny porches. Side porches, every level of the property you come in. They're not always on the front side of the house for some reason. The porch is on the front of your house. What is this? Fake door to the street? That's front door's on the side of the house. What is that? These are not porches. These are called piazzas. Piazzas are technically exterior rooms of your home you would put cooling off on in the middle of a long, hot, humid summer. You're trying to catch the northeasterly breeze. If your house is built facing east to west, the piazzas are on the southern exposition of the home to catch that airflow. House facing north to south, the piazzas are on the western exposition of the home to catch the airflow. So if you see that house right there, that's either south or west. That's south, that's north, that's east, and that's the way back towards the market to get turned around the city. You can use these houses as a compass support, quite honestly. Okay, Emerson. Well, that doesn't explain the funny fake door to the street. The fake door to the street is called a privacy door if it's closed. A privacy door indicates anybody walking by or cruising by in a horse-drawn carriage. Mind your manners. Don't look up. You don't want to be called a sleeping Tom, right? People were wearing layer upon layer of clothing back in the antebellum period, the colonial period. Gentlemen, overcoats, undercoats, jackets off, right? Ladies, overdress, underdress, corset, hoop skirt. More involved, right? You have lots of layers of clothing. So what you would do is you would take off those heavy outer layers, you would strip down to your undergarment, which was a one garment. It was another layer of clothing from the neck to the ankle. It was very faux pas back in those times. It was seen in like a light layer of clothing. So if you're cooling off on your piazza, what you do is you close the door to the street. Indicates mind your manners. You don't want to be called a sleeping Tom, a creeper, or let avert your gaze. If the door was left open, they would call that a hospitality door. Hospitality door means come on over for a glass of sweet here, a cocktail. We're looking to host you and invite you over for some true Southern hospitality. Awesome handmade wrought iron work. The heart's the gate there, the heart is the gate right here. Both examples of Mr. Philip Simmons' work. Philip Simmons was a person of color, born in 1912 on Daniels Island. He picked up the hammer at the age of 13 as a blacksmith apprentice, puts it down at the age of 87. Has some beautiful pieces, handmade wrought ironwork all throughout the city and the district. His signature are hearts and hearts. So if you see either, you can say that's Mr. Philip Simmons' work. We talked about the earthquake of 1886 at the beginning. Take a look to the right here between 89 and 87. One of these things is not like the other. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's getting pretty severe, isn't it? Probably why it's now. That's damage to the earthquake of 1886. House is settled that way. There's nothing structurally wrong with the integrity of that building, which means the city can't force you to do anything about it. That's the buck. Like somebody's not going to notice that. 82 and a half Grass Street. Get the cameras ready. Here it is. 1, 2, 3. 82 and a half Grass Street. I know, like the cutest dependency in all of Charleston, the kitchen house with their chimney or the smokestack. And for the low, low price of $2.5 million 10 years ago, that property could have been all yours. Crazy, right? doggy rolling around. He's distracted by big little dogs. First Saturday of each and every month, they get really distracted by the dachshunds. Somebody's familiar with wiener dogs? There's a Facebook group called the Dachshunds of Charleston. They do something called the Dachshund Walk first Saturday of each and every month. Everybody gets their dachshunds together on the peninsula and just kind of strut their stuff together. Last time I was working on the first Saturday of the month, my Carriage and I, our first tour of the day, we counted 63 ducks. The dachshunds bark at everything except for other dachshunds. And it's really weird to see like packs of like dachshunds just like owning like the city, and not like they're not making a peep or anything. They're just like quietly like roaming around. Great example of exploring. And also, take a look at the windows as we go by. Notice they like kind of shimmer, wavy windows. There's not a layer of film or plastic on the outside of the glass. That's period-specific building material right there on the main part of the property. Single pane handmade leaded glass windows. And if one of those windows were to break, you would have to replace them with period-specific building material. Which means that if you get yourself in the Porsche and BMW and you drive over to Lowe's or Home Depot, you're like, hey, which aisle do you have the single pane handmade leaded glass windows? They're probably going to laugh you out of the building. They'll say, oh, you're one of those folks from downtown Charleston, aren't you? You're going to have to contact contractors that have been doing work on other historic properties throughout the United States to see if they have windows that will fit the dimensions of your property. And if they don't, you can actually make an appointment to talk to the Pella Window Factory in the state of Iowa, and you can commission them to make your windows to order. You just send them the specifications, requirements, and sizes, dimensions. Right-hand side, great example of the Charleston single house. And this one you'll see the privacy door or the hospitality. Come in, it's a little red flyer right there. Wait, hi there. Oh, hi there. It's like a cool red flyer you got. Oh my God. You have a nice day, okay? Hi there. Oh, so don't be afraid if people wave to you. They tip their cap, they say hi, they see something crazy like hello or like good morning. It's normal. People are really pretty nice down here in the American South. They call it hospitality for sure. I moved down from Harlem back in 2020 back during the beginning of the pandemic. I worked in food and bev for a long time. I was used to like putting headphones in like on the subway and not looking anybody in the eye until I got into the building at work or something. I now have these people called neighbors. They wave like every morning. I know they're trying to get my social security number. Yeah. People are really nice. Like, people are genuinely friendly, and like that's one of the things that's really endearing about like this area of the American South. It's a great place to live. It's like people are nice, and it just feels. It's a small city that feels like a big town. Quite honestly, it's really kind of cool about it. Super quiet at certain times of the day and times of the year. It feels kind of eerie.
Did you notice it is quiet?
Any questions I haven't answered for you also? Personal problems you want to talk about? Financial problems, right? Like, you tell me anything you want on this Carriage. Confidentiality, please. Ready? You take a look down to the left-hand side, beautiful church made entirely out of Connecticut brownstone. That right there is the diocese for the Catholic faith in the state of South Carolina today. It is what's known as St. John the Baptist Catholic Cathedral. Being a diocese, what that truly means is that's where the bishop sits for that faith in the state. Originally a priest from the country of Haiti named Dr. Roja. He's now Bishop Dr. Roja. He's there for service each and every Sunday at St. John the Baptist, just a little bit further down the road. If you take a look to the right, this is Washington Square Park right here. If I were to ever like pick up a sandwich and I'm downtown, this is where I'm like eat a sandwich and have like a little afternoon. Really pretty. You got great shade from these American live oaks right here. You wave hi to President George Washington and that bronze castle right there. Hey, George. Big reason that there is a statue of George Washington in Charleston. This was one of the stops for him on his southern campaign or his southern tour back in May for 8 days. 1791, he stopped at Fort City to Fort City on that southern campaign. Saying thank you to all those that fought valiantly during the American Revolution. careful if you walk down a street like Chalmers. Easy way to twist an ankle on vacation. I wouldn't recommend. Chalmers Street's a great background for like profile pictures and whatnot, though. It's made entirely out of not cobblestone, but ballast stone. Every one of the stones that makes up Chalmers Street is originally from the River Thames in London. Very dense, very heavy river rocks that were taken from the River Thames, put aboard the hull of ships so they would sit deeper in the water, wouldn't be nearly as buoyant, not as light, wouldn't be resting on top of the water because they would capsize possibly if they hit a storm or choppy waters on their way over to this area of the New World. So the ballast helps them weigh the ships down a little bit deeper, and that's a good chance of capsizing and a safer journey. Historically, a street wouldn't look like that. They would use it as the foundation once they got here to this side of the Atlantic Ocean, but they would cover up the top with dirt and mud to smooth it out. So it wouldn't be such a bumpy carriage ride. But it would support the weight of the draft horses and all the carriages loaded up with goods coming to and from the harbor. That plaza right there, easy to miss. That's where the Civil War started, physically on that spot. That's where the Ordinance of Secession was signed on December 20th of 1860, when South Carolina became the first state to leave the country, sparking the first Southwest Civil War the following year. This Museum of Art right there that we talked about a little bit earlier, awesome, and you'll see they're still doing history treatment. Open gates to the graveyard. The gates are open, you can go check out the tombstones, like that half, like semi-lunar looking tombstone looks like half a piece of stone, quite honestly, in the back. That is the oldest legible tombstone in the city of Charleston. It dates all the way back to 1695. It's called the Simmons family crypt. You'll notice plant life, flowers, flora, fauna planted on top of the graves too, where the saying pushing up daisies originally come from. These plants were away in the spring and the summer, those flowers would come up, smell really nice and fragrant. Everyone walking by would think of you as a fond memory of you on that pathway. Like not even perfect. I should bring applications with me. Also, if you look at the top of the street signs here, it'll tell you what kind of neighborhood that we're entering in.
Of course, it was at the
Right here.
information
It's going to be the French
center,
Quarter.
right by the water, and we took you to the homes that have the different colors and
Rainbow Road.
the Rainbow Road. And then it took you to that house that I was telling you about. I bought earrings at the information center of that house.
Fled England after the with King Charles II after he was welcomed back in out of exile. And when he was welcomed back into the country, he does two things. He excused his parliament and he kicks the Protestants out of England during that time period, the reign of King Charles. Those are like, wait a minute, this is the oldest French word in English. What about New Orleans? When I get to say, like, well, that was originally a French colony. It wasn't until the Louisiana Purchase and technically it's absorbed into what is the United States when we think of it. Right inside here. It's really cool. This is the oldest museum in the United States. Built in 1713. You see, Outer Magazine. Everybody say, ooh. Ooh. Ah. The cannon's out front in the courtyard. If you look close, you'll see the seal of King George III stamped into the top of the cast iron. Those are not replicas. Those are real Revolutionary War era cannons that were used by the English and the Tories versus the Patriots during the American Revolution between 1775 and 83. If you get a chance, you can actually go inside the building where it's open to the general public. The museum currently. The museum talks entirely about Charleston's part in the American Revolution. A lot of folks, their hair is kind of blown back when I say that South Carolina had the highest war debt by far out of any state and colonies, as well as the highest number of casualties during that war for American independence during that time period. It's a big reason for the affluence and wealth, big houses, bougie architecture, beautiful gardens. The English didn't want to let go of this cash cow in the New World. This is where over 300 skirmishes happened during that time period because of the plantation economy the English originally set up. Things like Carolina gold rice cultivation, like indigo being harvested, deep blue dye for our state flag, for instance. Number 3 would have been Lone State of Sea Island cotton. State 3 crop made this the 4th wealthiest economy in the world by 1760. And I don't mean South Carolina, I mean the peninsula of Charleston was the 4th wealthiest economy in the world at one time. This is the gateway to the affluence and wealth that's displayed in the architecture and the property. People were literally showing off their wealth through their name. If you get a chance, I highly recommend it. It's like an afternoon, go visit one of the plantations off of the city limits. My pick is typically Magnolia, because they have a trolley service that takes you around the entire area. It's like thousands of acres. Kind of a lot to walk for an afternoon. They also offer the second half of the day, which is called the Slavery to Freedom Field, and they talk about the people that would have been planting, harvesting these fields. Charleston was built on the back when slaves were people, for the most part. For the most part, these people, they were taken to places like Sierra Leone, Senegal, Mozambique, and the western coast of Africa during what was historically called the transatlantic slave trade. It's not a very pretty part of Charleston's history. It's a very important part of the history as far as the city, the state, the United States in general. If you walk through the market too, this is why you'll find a thriving gullah culture in the state of South Carolina. You notice an influence, even in the cuisine, definitely Western African influence. Shrimp and grits. If you go over to Senegal, you will find porridge made out of pounded up corn, grits, or you find large prawns, aka the shrimp that we use. It's all interwoven, quite honestly. It gives you a very interesting culture in today's modern time. Baskets that were for sale back on Meeting Street. You see these baskets sold in the market when it's open too. These are called sweetgrass baskets that are only made by descendants of the Gullah community in the state of South Carolina. As sweetgrass, bulrush, and pine needles, the art form is only passed down from one generation to the next by word of mouth. There's no written record on how to make one of those baskets. If you were to buy one of these baskets right about here, no matter how large or how small they are, I highly recommend. If you ever go visit the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., bring your basket with you. And go stop by the Smithsonian Institute. If you stop by the History Museum, there's one historian in particular that can look at the pattern of weaving your basket, narrow it down to exactly which family made that basket. I recommend getting them to sign and date the bottom of the Sharpie so you know which family member made that basket. Why not? They really are heirlooms that can pass on to the next generation. It's really pretty neat as far as. Around the head right here. And most important part of our tour is going to happen in just a moment. This is Carriage right here. Carriage is the most important part of our tour. It's going to do two things. It's going to take the GPS in front of our carriage and the placard from the back, return both of these pieces of equipment to the city of Charleston. What that does is it stops the time card for H to make sure that he's not out too long on tour, not doing too many tours a day, getting the break he deserves when he gets back to the barn up here. That being said, right now it's just about 5 o'clock, which means that the last history tour is going to go out momentarily. And he needs a 30-minute break at the minimum, about an hour on average by normal, which means that this was his last tour of the day. He doesn't do the evening tours. If he works the day, he's only working during the day. This was our 4th tour of the day, which is pretty average. 4 to 5 is pretty normal for a day working together. That being said, if he works the day, he accrues the day off out of pasture on John's Island. If he were to work consecutive days, let's say, he accrues consecutive days off out of pasture. That comes out to about 6 months off out of the year, or about 180 days off each and every year. And that's where he lives full time. We currently, we've had 65 acres for the longest time as a pasture. Our ownership did just purchase an adjoining parcel from a neighbor of 45 more acres. So when that's fully functional, we'll have 110 acres of pasture land for our 41 horses in the herd currently north-south. We do have multiple trailers each and every day. We have a morning, we have a midday, then we have an evening trailer that typically comes in at about 6 o'clock or so, while he's transporting horses in and out of the city. That's the thing too. You need like a driver's license to do what I do. You gotta get like your license to the city, so you're not just like fibbing for 60 minutes. Nobody knows how to fib like a tour guide. But if you want to drive the trailer, you do need a CDL license to drive the trailer. like a big, like, I do not drive a tractor. It's like that's intimidating. Let's go, bud. Let's get out of here. A lot of horsepower. Let's go, bud. Very nice. Last but not least, Ace is just going to show off a little bit of fancy footwork right here. This is a big reason that Ace earns his half the tip money. I cannot parallel park. So Ace is going to show us how to equine parallel park at the dock on the left right here. One step, two step, that was great. You know, just before you jump off, enjoy the rest of your day. Just make sure, check our dimensions, don't leave anything behind. Mind the gap, as the English would say, on the right-hand side to get off on the dock. Just don't get off on the left. That's how we see folks on the Google or whatever. I like y'all too much for that, quite honestly.